Hey guys, welcome to the crossover event of all crossover events. This is the Patreon Mailbag edition, which I would assume this would have to be a free one, so maybe it's not on Patreon, but we'll find out. And Draft Strickland. So that means Dallas is gone, but Prez is here. Prez, how is it going?
Good. I'm excited for this crossover. Been a long time coming.
It has
You
been
know,
because
this is up there with the great crossovers in history, right? This is like Avengers Endgame. I
event,
don't even know.
event.
I don't even know what other. I'm not. I know the new Flash movie is a crossover, but I'm not watching it. So let's pretend I didn't bring that up. What's some other big crossovers?
I'm completely blanking right now. I'm trying to go to music
Marvel
crossovers.
versus Capcom
There we
2,
go.
biggest fighting game of all time.
That's a
There,
good one. Yeah, Super Smash Brothers is always the crossover event,
there you go.
stuff like that. So this is what you're getting: someone who is an expert on the draft and Prez, of course, on
Yes, naturally.
naturally because I know. So I'm excited. I get to ask Prez all my stupid draft questions along with all of your amazing questions. We got tons of stuff from our Discord. If you're not a part of that, you have to go to, man, I'm clearly rusty with all this. I haven't done this in a while. You got to go to patreon.com/the Strickland, or you go to the strict.land, hit the left tab thing, whatever, go to our Patreon. We have all the different tiers, like $3, $6, $9, something along those lines. You get this pod, you get Schwinn Stricken Roll, you get Pod Strickland Friday edition, Whip Prez, all that good stuff. So definitely check that out. And I probably have to do some bet online ad at some point.
We could put that in post production.
Yeah, we could put that in post. Oh, wait, hold on. I have it. I pulled it up. Bet online is your number one source for all of your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines and the latest matchup reports for this year's NBA playoffs. Oh, this could be an old one, but however, the WNBA is going on, so you should definitely be betting that and betting on our New York Liberty. So BetOnline is your sports intel headquarters for this season, as we have you covered for all your insider sports rating from basketball, MLB, NHL. Well, that's weird that they put NHL hockey like that. Golf to UFC, boxing. The fastest and easiest way for your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games available at your home. Oh man, you can play poker on here too. That sounds good. So get into the action today. So head over to the website or use your mobile phone device to join. And be sure to use the promo code BLEAV, which is BLEAV, to receive your 50% bonus on your first deposit. Bet online where games start. Wonderful. That is done. Prez, you ready for questions?
Let's do some questions.
All right, let's go. Zach asks us, how will you/Prez react when the Knicks don't trade for a pick? So just in case you guys are not familiar, the Knicks do not have any draft picks in this upcoming draft, which is Thursday, right, Prez?
Mm-hmm.
Look at, yeah. So the Knicks don't have anything. We're hoping that they're going to trade in. So Prez, they decide to not trade up or trade into the draft. How are you going to feel?
I'll feel sad. I will understand it, but I will not concur with their decision. Just because if they don't trade up, it's probably, or not trade up, trade in. It's probably not because they didn't have an opportunity to do it. There's a couple of different ways they could probably get a pick, especially later in the first round or the second.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't pursue any of those, it's probably because their bar is so high that they decided, nope, we don't like anybody available at the picks that we could get. And maybe they don't like them because they're too much of a project, they're too young, or they just think they're not good enough or whatever. And I think there's a lot of good players in this draft, and I think it's important to have young players with potential and cheap salaries. And if you go two drafts in a row without doing that, then you start to look a little bit like Mark Cuban and the Mavs, and that's never a good look. You don't want to be in the same sentence as Mark Cuban.
Yeah, I feel like they really do have to add someone on a cheap contract at some point. Again, because the last pick was basically Deuce, right? And then
Deuce and Sims.
Deuce and Sims, right? And
yeah,
they could use someone who's like cost controlled. So ideally,
Mm-hmm.
like a late first round pick would actually be pretty helpful for the team just to have like someone and someone on salary. The new CBA, I wish I looked into this more, but did they change anything about the contracts for the second round picks?
They did, but I don't remember what it is, and it doesn't start this year. So for
Okay.
now, the first rounders still have one more year of team control. In the new CBA, they did some shit with the second rounders, and they add another 2-way contract spot as well.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't remember. So right now, if you get the 30th pick, that's 4 years team control versus 3 if you get the 31st.
Okay. So yeah, like I feel like like someone like I'm just even looking at the mock right now. Like the Pacers have 2 picks in the late 20s. So I feel like that's like an easy thing to be like try to get something with them to get someone based on
that's the one that everybody has their eyes on because the Pacers have a high pick as well. So I'm like, are you really going to bring in 3 rookies? That seems unlikely.
Yeah, like not only 3 rookies, 3 like not guaranteed 4-year deals, but right, like 4-year deals team controlled for that team. And then plus they also have pick 32 in the second round.
I didn't even know that. Shit.
So like they have tons of picks at the end of the draft. I feel like that's like a prime team to go after. I mean, we'll get into some of these guys because I'm just looking at Tankathon instead of Prez told me not to do NBADraft.net, which really hurt to not have to look at. But there's guys like Marcus Sasser. He's from
Marcus
Houston.
Sasser.
So he's on Houston, which is Quentin Grind's
they played together.
Right? Yeah, so like that's someone I feel like they should go after just by the name and the college he went to. That's how I do things. Unless it's Brandon. Oh, I don't trust Brandon Podziemski. Yeah, I don't trust him.
He's not going to go in the second round. He's going to go higher.
Okay, because Tankathon has him at 30. I don't like the way he spells Brandon, so I don't really trust him. So
he's a white boy.
Who
went to mid-major school.
That's Santa Clara. That's Steve Nash.
Yeah.
Oh man.
You would like him. He could totally be like a triangle offense point guard.
I know, like I say this right now, but like I could watch like 5 minutes of him and I'd be like, yeah, no, I'm totally in. Like great entry pass, Brandon.
In the Knicks draft Twitter power rankings of who people are obsessed with, he's probably pretty high. Because if you look at his game, he's like a 6'5" combo guard who played a lot of point guard, and he's not really athletic, but he can shoot the crap out of the ball, and all of his stats are insane. Like all of it, like he's like average almost like 10 rebounds as a guard, was like a ridiculous shooter from everywhere.
Oh man, I'm looking at his stats right now.
Like, and his game is fire. Like if it's flashy and it's like no look passes and moonball floaters and quick release 3-pointers. And he's a dog. He like gets physical. That's how he gets all those rebounds and shit.
All right, so maybe he actually is someone to look into. But yeah, no, I just clicked on his page for like his stats is like rebounding is like a plus. Like all of his advanced stats are pluses. The only negative Tankathon has is like wingspan.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, yeah, I can live with that. Oh, he's not. Why is this picture has him in braids?
Yeah, he has some pictures where clearly he had bad hair advice from someone.
Oh man, yeah. Ooh.
So
yeah, he needs to do something about this ESPN.
That's not current. Now he has I don't know how you would describe it, but not braids. It's a regular white person haircut. I don't know what it is.
That's good to hear. Brandon, do not do that hair again. Jax365 asks, what would make you angry? Did Knicks draft another guard or not drafting anyone? It would have to be not drafting anyone. They can't do it 2 years in a row.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Like, yeah, the guard rotation is crowded, but whatever. Like, I'd rather have a guard who's just like the understudy for a year. Because we're not going to keep all these motherfuckers for down the line. As much as I love Deuce and IQ and Grimes and there's too many. So like
someone is eventually going to go. It's just ultimately like who it is and when it's going to be and who it's for.
Exactly. So, like we were saying, these first rounders, you have them for 4 years. So just because they can't play 20 minutes on day one doesn't mean like it's a stupid pick, even though that's kind of how the Knicks seem to operate sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, we know.
So yeah, hopefully, like that's the thing. There's a lot of good guards. Like Podziemski, you mentioned Sasser. So Sasser's he was probably the best guard in the country, arguably, as a senior last. Yeah, he was like Houston. His team was crazy. Like it was him and Jarvis Walker, who's going to be a top 10 pick, but was a freshman. And this guy Sasser, he's like, he took 250 threes in a college season, which is like an insane thing.
That's a lot of threes.
I think Grimes did the same thing before he came into, like they don't mess around in Houston with the Morey ball, and it's like all manner of threes with him. It's like pull-ups, cross tween, step back, like fade away.
Right.
But he's also he's short. He's 6'1", but he has like he has some IQ in him. He's like long arms. He's not skinny. He's actually a good defender. For obviously, if you're 6'1", you're gonna struggle with somebody who's like 6'8". But like,
yeah, no, of course, anybody
like 6'6" or shorter, he can probably bother them because he's so fucking strong. And he's just like, he's like Grimes. He's like they got that Houston dog where they're just fucking up in your shirt and they're strong and agile and all that shit. So yeah, if we didn't have guards, I'd be like, they might fuck around and look at Mr. Sasser.
Yeah, like I'm looking at his stats on basketball, Sports Reference.
Yeah.
And like he's taken basically 753s, right? 748 for his college career and shot 36.9. So 37% on volume. And he only got better as he got older, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
and if anything, that undersells it just because like he
was looked like he got
offense.
hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like he got hurt in 2021 because he only played 12 games.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, I feel like this is just, I feel like they did this with you with Desmond Bain. I forgot who I was talking to about it, but like I was just looking at his stats because like he was like a senior. He had all his
stats were insane.
Right. It's like he had all the volume stats. I'm like, this guy's clearly going to be a good NBA player. And like he dropped, and then he was a good NBA player.
Bain was the stupidest shit. He literally he shot 40%, over 40% on volume for 3 for 4 college years, and shot over 40% in high school for 3 years, which is like unheard of for high school students. So you're talking like over 1,000 threes of elite shooting.
Yes.
And this motherfucker really dropped. I mean, I'm glad we got IQ because he's ridiculous in his own right, but goddamn, bro.
Yeah, no, I don't know how do you handle stuff like that those type of picks? Prez,
what do you mean?
Like when you look at like that, like I'm just looking at like the mock draft right now, right? So you have like Victor Wembanyama, like obviously we know why he's going to be the number 1 pick, right? Like the height and everything that, but you just see like these, like the top guys are always like, basically 19, 20-year-olds with, you're doing it for potential. So what do you do then? Like, how are you evaluating someone like with the sample size though?
Yeah.
Versus the projection.
I have a history personally of actually overrating older players, dating back to my son Grant Riller, who I still hope makes it into the NBA. He's with Dallas's G League team. Bain, I did not overrate, but most other older players I like a lot, I overrate. And if you think about it, it's because like if someone's RJ Barrett's age and they're playing in like the Big Ten, they'll probably destroy everybody else because they're like playing 17-year-olds. And future, I don't know, accountants or some shit. So like you're supposed to destroy them. So your stats are supposed to be crazy. So it is kind of tough. For the younger players, I actually think it's a little easier because usually like you are picking them for potential, but if they're good and young, they'll probably still have good stats.
Okay.
It sounds kind of silly, but like good basketball players play good basketball even when they're young and still have potential. But with the older players, it's just, especially once you start getting to like past 21, like if you look at the Knicks picks, most of them, they haven't been kids, but aside from Obi, it's been like 20 years old, 21 years old. Obi was 22. He was much older, which is why like a lot of people were like, I don't know. But if you look at Obi's college stats, they were like breaking math. Like they were just like all the stats look ridiculous and made up. So like
Hey,
the
Prez, can you
bar
hold on a
should be
second?
that high. Yeah.
Yeah, you were talking about Obi, about how he was older, but there's something potentially there, right?
Yeah, well, like his stats were so crazy that like it clears that high bar of like the older you are, the better you're supposed to be, and especially when it comes to shooting, like because we pick an 18-year-old, a 19-year-old, you're like, oh, they'll get better at shooting when they're in the NBA. Well, they should get better at shooting in college if they're still in college too, right? Even though it's a little bit different, but like every year that passes in college is another year that you are not expecting them to develop in the NBA, if that makes sense. So like, you draft an 18-year-old, you're like, oh, well, he has 4 years until he's 22 and the end of his rookie deal to get better. But if you draft Obi, you're like, he kind of has to be better faster. So,
right.
So I don't know. I haven't quite, it's more art than science for me. But it pretty much comes down to the older they are, the more ridiculous their stats have to be. For them to be to be like an older player who makes it into the lottery, for example.
I gotcha. So you ready for the next question?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. This is from Chris A. If we don't draft a guy, does Rokas come over? And if he does, what do we do with another 6'3", 6'5" guard?
Man, I'm beginning to just think they're not bringing over Rokas. Well, first of all, let's forget what the Knicks want, and let's think about what Rokas wants, because he's gone on the record as saying, I'm only going to come over if there's a role. And I don't think the role he's describing is the Deuce McBride situational role.
Yeah, no, he's definitely not.
He doesn't start anymore, but he's on one of the best teams in Europe. They got a championship last year. So it's not like he's like doing nothing over there. Like he's busy winning and playing. So he's not about to just come sit on the bench for the Knicks and just do nothing. So I think there's that. And then also like if you're Brock Aller and Leon Rose, like with the foreign guys like that, their contract clock doesn't start until they come over.
Yes, that is correct. So they could just hold his rights until whenever.
Yeah, and if you're like, say they hold on to it for a while, right? Say they hold on to it for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Eventually, whoever you trade that to, they can then hold that. Or if they need depth and a backup guard, they can bring him over and start his clock. So like, it's a helpful asset to have over there in Spain. If you have that asset over here, then for what? Like the clock is ticking so he can back up Deuce.
Yeah, like it would be insane.
No, that seems
it wouldn't
like,
even make sense for him.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense for him or for us. So I don't think just because of the team we got, unless we do a big consolidation trade, which I don't see happening. I think sadly, if you want to see Rokas, you're gonna have to go watch the EuroLeague on YouTube or ESPN.
Yeah, because the only thing I'm just looking at, like obviously their minutes distribution and how they play over in Europe is like different, but like he has a role, right? Like he's playing 20 minutes, his per 36s are good, right? Like he's in a competitive league. Like there really isn't that much of a reason for him to come over right now, especially for the Knicks. Like I think the only way he would probably come over if the Knicks did something like IQ and Grimes, right? For like a starting guard, which we're running low on, right? Because Bradley Beal was just traded. So like if the Knicks aren't going to consolidate, then he's just probably going to stay over there because they don't need each other right now. There's just no room. They just don't need each other. So I mean, it'd be nice. I mean, he has game, right? So it's like he passes, he scores. Like he's kind of what you want out of a guard, but I just don't see any room for him.
Yeah, it ain't happening. Sorry, y'all.
Read and React asks, what likely undrafted guy might have a real shot at making the Knicks roster? Ooh, we're talking undrafted. Prez, who's going undrafted?
I don't think anybody undrafted is going to make the Knicks roster.
No one. Like there's What if this name kind of sounds familiar to me? So Tankathon has someone named Emily Bates drop.
Oh, Ibani, yeah.
Yeah, the 53rd pick to the Timberwolves. What if he drops to undrafted? Wasn't he supposed to be like some highly touted?
He was, and it was a kind of a case where the hype train, unfortunately for him, rolled a little too fast, and I think he'll be a player in the NBA. He might go undrafted, and he might be back and forth between the G League and the Big Boy League. But I think I could see the Knicks signing an undrafted guy. I don't think it's going to do anything. I don't think like they're going to be an impact player, right? Like what we saw with Sims was remarkable. Like that is not normal.
Yes, yeah, that's definitely not normal.
Not that he was undrafted, but he was like pick 50 something or whatever. Like that
58th, 59th, one of the two.
Something crazy like that. Like that is not Knicks fans. We're almost like spoiled. Like, oh yeah, you could just find some fucking guy at the end of the draft in the scrap heap, and he'd come in and be your third string / second string center / power forward sometimes and be fine.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like the late picks. It's just Sims had it okay so far. It's basically that and like Isaiah Thomas, right? Like you don't find guys ever.
I mean, I get it for like, we see what the Heat do with these guys, so that's probably why this question came up, because the Heat are the best at finding those fucking dudes. Yes. Like there's always shooters who will go undrafted, and if you can make sure that they don't suck at other things, that's probably the best way to get an undrafted player to be good. But you gotta dedicate like roster spots to figuring that out, right? Like that's what Miami does. They got roster spots for Haywood Highsmith and all these fucking guys to just figure out.
I'm trying to think for like
we Miami, don't got those roster spots, so no, we don't have. Tibbs is not about to be like, let me see what Colin Castleton is made of, and just like, he's a good player. He might go undrafted, but it's it's unlikely the way that Knicks operate.
Yeah, no, especially for the Heat too. I feel like the skill is ultimately, can you shoot coming off a screen, right? Like that's right, and that's like the foundation for them. So they just find these guys who are really good at that, and they go, all right, can we get them to dribble enough? And you see that Duncan Robinson, right? Like he can kind of dribble.
Yeah, he can dribble and pass.
Yeah, so it's like perfect. Like that's what you got to do, and the Knicks just don't operate that way. Like,
and the other thing is that the Knicks are one of the few good teams that isn't really top heavy and has depth, right? Like most teams are like the Celtics have depth and are top heavy, but like we have like Brunson and Randall and RJ, and then we have like 5 or 6 other legit guys. It's not like Jimmy, Bam, and then a huge cliff, and then some other guys, and then a huge cliff again. Like that's so we don't. It's if you have a lot of your cap taken up in like 2 or 3 guys, then you have more space and willingness to be like, let me see what this random guy who can shoot off screens is if we get him into shape, right? Or whatever, shit like that.
Right, like someone even for the Knicks, like Evan Fournier is kind of washed, but like he could still shoot.
Sure.
Like he could still play somewhere. So it's not like it's like even those it's the Knicks are a different type of team. Yeah. Unfortunately. Well, maybe not unfortunately, but like
unfortunately, if you like random draft gambles.
Yeah, like that's the only thing. Like you're the Knicks, you're not getting a draft gamble from the Knicks. Like there's something like solid in whoever they're picking.
I will say if we do, like we have seen teams once they get to a certain level of goodness kind of pivot to a little bit more gambly. And the biggest example is when the Nuggets took Michael Porter Jr. because they were like, he was supposed to go like top 7, top 5, and then everybody was scared of his medicals, and the Nuggets were like, fuck it. Like, we're already good. So if we burn this pick and it's worth nothing, it won't set us back. So we're just going to swing for the fences, and it worked out. And that doesn't always happen. Like the Sacramento Kings burned the 20th pick a couple years ago on Harry Giles, who was a former number 1 player in the country as a high school student. And he also, like Michael Porter Jr., got really hurt, but unlike Michael Porter Jr., he wasn't able to retain a bunch of skills, and he wasn't, a shooter or anything like that. So he depended on his athleticism, so it didn't work, and they wasted the pick. But it wasn't a big deal that they wasted that pick. It's just unfortunate. So like, maybe the Knicks decide to fucking swing for the fences and risk it, right? They're good enough now that they can.
The Knicks did swing for the fences in that draft too.
In that draft? What draft?
Yeah. The draft that Michael Porter Jr. was drafted in.
Oh my God. Yeah. Fucking
the Knicks swung for the
Scott Perry swung for the fences and struck out on 3 strikes.
I think that's still one of the most shocking drafts in a while, at least for me, like watching them. Because the hype was like, we're getting one of the bridges. Thank God we didn't get Miles. But like, right, like one of the bridges was supposed to be a Knick.
I was so scared of Michael Porter Jr.'s physical that I was like, I don't even like Kevin Knox, and I prefer him just because I was like, this motherfucker's back is going to like melt on the sidelines.
Everyone thought that, and it happened to not. So like, great. But like,
right.
But like you said, it only works because it's the Nuggets. Like
they were good enough. They had the foundation.
Yeah. Like if, I don't know, I'm like, let me go back to the draft. I just had it, right? Like if Atlanta took Michael Porter Jr. instead of Luka / Trey, right? Like they couldn't afforded that at that time. Like
they had to hit.
Like he has to hit, and it also helps too, right? Like for the Nuggets, it's you have someone who is an elite shooter at his size, and you have someone who just passes the ball, right? Like Jokic just passes the ball.
Yeah, the skill sets made it a worthwhile gamble for sure.
So. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, unfortunately, the Knicks aren't in that situation right now. Or again, depending on how you want to say fortunate or unfortunate, because the Knicks are also in a very fortunate place because we have Jalen Brunson on a crazy good deal who has elite impact. So, all right, Franklin Chubb asks, what Knicks draft day picks might you made you happiest at the time, and which made you most miserable?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, so he has a number of them, but let's go through that. Like, what was your happiest and what was your most miserable?
Well, before I say happiest or most miserable, I'll tell you the most funny, which was when we picked RJ Barrett. I was at Yankee Stadium actually at a game with a buddy, and they showed it on the big screen. Everybody was cheering, but I was a hater. I didn't like RJ Barrett as a prospect. I still had him top 7 or top 6.
Prez, you're still a hater.
I'm still a hater. That's true. That didn't change. That still remains the case even with RJ specifically.
Right. It's still the case. It doesn't matter.
So I wasn't. I know I had a period where I wasn't a hater. Now I'm back to being a hater. So, but yeah, I gave like how when you I was gonna locate myself a little bit. I would say like when you're watching a vote, but nobody in the real world does that. So like if you're watching like the State of the Union or whatever, and like Biden says some shit that everybody agrees with, like, oh, we gotta fight climate change, and then like none of the Republicans applaud.
Yes.
That was me in the bleachers. I was like, I wasn't booing, but I wasn't applauding.
Yeah, you weren't booing, but you're just like, you know what? Come on, really? This is who we get.
Exactly. So that was the funniest. I wasn't necessarily mad. I was just like, we kind of had to make this pick, but I'm not going to be happy about it. Damn it. I'm a snob.
Yeah, because even like looking back right now, which has been a very interesting draft, that 2019, just given, Zion and his exploits and Ja Morant and his exploits, right? Like I'm looking at the draft, like the only guy I'm like would be like, oh no, I kind of wish they got would be Darius Garland, right?
Yeah,
like,
and we've already established that, like, me personally, I'm way too much of a coward to take like somebody who got injured and missed like the whole college season.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Right. It's like that was the huge risk with Garland, right? It was just like he only played high school basically.
Yeah, and 3 games of Vanderbilt. So like he was a great prospect. Don't get me wrong, but it just seemed like RJ just was like what you're getting for the most part, flaws and strengths.
Flaws and all, right? Like yeah, exactly.
So I was like, that's why I understood it. I was like, I know they're not about to again. Like they weren't in a position where they could gamble with the pick.
Yeah, no, so you couldn't.
Just take the guy who's just what you're getting, and he's still a great prospect. And
they've basically known what we've gotten. He's basically been the player, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
He's basically been the guy, except I think we ultimately fluctuate on like defensive impact or defensive skill with RJ. That's the main thing. But it was the guy who can get to the rim, and if he ever finishes efficiently, he's going to be very good, right? And he's pretty much been that. So like during his good games, it's because he finishes efficiently at the rim. We saw that in the playoffs. So like he's pretty much been the person we've expected.
Yeah, he had a high floor, like,
yes,
and he hasn't like exceeded that much, but it's still a solid player. So you sign up for that every day because it could be next year. He could just figure out one of the things he sucks at and becomes only okay at that, and then all of a sudden he's really good. So you know what you're getting.
He's probably below his floor right now, just given like because it's like we still don't know, is he like one of those like 82 versus 16 game players, right? So that's why I would probably put him like under his floor. But you're right though, like if he just
like if he comes into next season and he's like, oh yeah, I can shoot a little, or I can pass a little, or I'm in shape now thanks to Nick Nurse playing me 60 minutes a game in FIBA.
Thanks. Yes, and it's like I could actually finish above people now, and it's like, oh, okay, so he's good.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, perfect.
Exactly. So like that's my most haterish funny pick. The pick I was most sad about, despondent about, was probably Obi. I was not a big Obi fan, not because he didn't have like prodigious offensive talent, but I was like many people, I thought he was going to be like borderline unplayable on defense.
Mm-hmm.
And to his credit, he's become like fine on defense, which is like, given his score, not that we take advantage of his scoring, but given his ability to score, like you sign up for that. So, but at the time I was like, of all the guys they could have picked, why did they pick Obi? There was a lot of good players in that range in that draft. So I was pretty. I don't think it rose to my cope started immediately. I'll put it that way. Like I wasn't like, oh fuck, and just like bitching on Twitter for like a month or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like looking out the window wistfully at like other guys picked around. You know,
I mean, there were some other guys who were picked around who were pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I was happy they didn't pick other players like Isaac Okoro, but you know.
Yes, and we also just saw that bear out, which was pretty nice in the playoffs. We're like, oh yeah, Isaac Okoro is not really playable.
Yeah, that was a W for Prez. Yeah, I didn't want Isaac. I really hoped we got Killian Hayes. Killian has not been able to put it together.
No,
Denny,
which is unfortunate.
It is unfortunate. He had at least stretches. He's no longer where I'm worried he's going to be out of the league. Now it's more of a question of like, is he going to be a rotation player or not?
Right.
Which is, either way, you're still talking like completely below what you want from the 7th pick. But
oh yeah, totally. Like
just on a root for the kid level, like I'm happy he's not about to go back to playing in Germany or some shit.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing. But yeah, no, like Denny has turned out decent.
Denny's turned out solid. Even though he can't shoot.
Turned out decent.
Vassell is the one I really wanted. Obviously, Halliburton, we heard about that shit all fucking year.
Yeah. But like there are some guys, but no, Vassell's turned out decent. Advia's turned out decent. Is Jalen? Which one's Jalen Smith? Where is he now? Is he the guy in Indiana now?
Yeah.
He's looked promising. Like some of the guys in that area turned out to be pretty decent.
It's more like lower. Like I mean, obviously, you know, we just basically pretended Quickly was our first pick for like.
That is very true. We're just like, yeah.
And then like Maxey was the other guy, obviously, that a lot of people wanted, and he's doing great. Bane, who you talked about.
Yes, like Bane was like the guy. I'm like, he's clearly going to be good. I'm trying to.
Yeah.
I was definitely upset with the Knox pick. I'm not going to lie. Like that's not even in retrospect. Like that one. Like I just knew because I just remember leading up to it. Like all of it was like
everybody
Mikal Bridges, Miles Bridges. You know, like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's like a sneaky pick, right? Like that was basically it. And then like the day of, it's like, no, they're going with Kevin Knox, and I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah, and the more we learned about what actually happened, like, oh, one-on-one workout where he happened to cook Miles Bridges once, and then we didn't work out SGA, even though SGA wanted to work out for the Knicks. Like the
Yep.
more we learned, the more stupid it just became.
Yeah, it got worse and worse, and I was like, oh dear God. I do remember the Porzingis pick being funny, at least to me, because in retrospect, I was like, I really wanted Jahlil Okafor.
I liked Jaleel as well, but I knew he wasn't going to fall to 4. So at 4, Kristaps was actually the one I wanted. The second person I wanted was Moutier, so I dodged the bullet there.
Well, after Jahlil, I wanted Mario Hezonja because they called him like Croatian Kobe.
Yes, his
So
hype was very, very powerful.
Yeah, so I'm like, I'm in. I'm like, please give me Croatian Kobe every single day. And we had him for a moment. We had Croatian Kobe for a moment, which made me happy.
That's true. A glorious few moments where he that play with LeBron. I'll always remember that.
That's going to be the highlight of his career.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think of other like thing. Like I remember, I think another funny one was when the Knicks drafted Marcin Lampe.
Yeah, I had no reaction to that.
Oh, this is probably for the older friends. I just remember there was a Lampe chant started when he got picked, because all the Knicks fans were there. Because that's when they were at Radio City, right? When they were doing the draft. And the upper deck was like, Lampe, 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 Lampe. I'm like, that's the greatest. It really was.
That's hilarious. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. I used to I love watching the draft. It's so fascinating.
It is.
But now that like media, like we've fragmented so much because of social media, and there's so many more people who like do this kind of like yourself, right? Where you're just like, you just know so much about it.
Yeah.
And there's so many other people now who know so much about it. So like for me watching it, like, because I don't watch college basketball, the only clips I would get would be like Jay Billis, like breaking down everyone, right? And I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. And it would just be so funny because he never said any flaws about anyone.
No, he just talked about their wingspan and what they were good at and stuff like that.
And it was such an interesting time following the draft before social media really popped off, because your only outlets were basically like ESPN.
And the only websites were Draft Express.
Yep.
And NBA Draft.net.
Yes, and Draft Express eventually went behind a paywall too.
Yeah, much later. Yeah.
It was a wild time back in those days.
Yeah, Kristaps was. I was pleased with how that worked out until I wasn't. The pick I was most happy about, probably Quentin Grimes. Dude, that whole draft was like
that ended up being a really good draft. Yeah,
that was they literally like might as well have just looked at my draft board. Like I had Deuce 9th or 10th. I had Grimes like 15th, I think. I had Sims like 35th. I had Rokas in the low 30s. So like they literally took 4 guys I had in the low 30s, which is bonkers. Like, and I remember the reaction was a little muted because everybody was like, like we traded 19 and we got Quentin Grimes, and Grimes seems cool, but I don't know. Like he had 2 years of okay shooting with weird free throw numbers, and then 1 good year. Do we know is real? Blah, blah, blah. He's older. He didn't get as much hype. And Deuce is the same way. Like he's older and, you know, West Virginia, blah, blah, blah. And I remember writing, like, I know everybody's like a little not down on these picks, but like not hype. But I had all these fucking guys high, so I'm excited, and I'm not going to change that. And it worked out. And it's like, I joke with people that the Knicks not picking last year, maybe not picking this year, was like karma for just dumb picking all of my guys that year. And they're like, all right, we've rewarded you enough, Prez. Now you get no picks forever.
Yeah, you don't get any more. But I don't, maybe this is me projecting my, what's the word I'm looking for? Almost like my just like lack of knowledge with these things. Like, did people not know Quentin Grimes was on like a did they win the championship? Houston?
No, but they came close. They were in the Final Four.
Right. And to me, I just kind of look at sometimes where like I take that step back and I'm just kind of like, well, he played in very important games in his college career, right? So like that's kind of important, like playing in high pressure games. So were people like not aware of that? or is that just like a me thing? Because I don't follow college, like I don't know who's playing in these like high pressure situations.
No, I think people overthought it. Not just that, but like the whole all of his profile. So like he shot a zillion threes and made a zillion threes. He played on an extremely good, almost championship team, and his advanced metrics, like his BPM and stuff like that, were off the charts, which makes sense because the players who have off the charts BPMs are usually really impactful on offense and on defense.
Yes.
But because he was a little older and he had a weird kind of career path where he was a 5-star recruit to Kansas to play point guard, and then he completely flamed out and had to transfer.
And then he became like an elite shooter.
Yeah, and even that, like if you look at his shooting numbers as his first 2 years,
they're not
good, but they're not great.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at them right now; they're fine.
Yeah, so people were like, I don't know if I buy the shot, and he just kind of had a weird career path. But to me, it was like, you can't fluke your way into making 100 threes in a college season. Like, there's no bad shooters who do that. And then also look at him shoot. Like, you see what his jump shot looks like. That's a good jump shot. And, that's my thing is like, I weigh that heavily. And then all the other shit that you mentioned, like the defense, the playoff experience, and, Houston produces dogs. And I was just like, what are we, and then he started rising up some people's draft boards at the very end because he had a very good combine. And then you had like the backlash where it's like, well, we shouldn't weigh the combine too heavily, right? It's only like 1 or 2 games and da, which is all true. But like, I don't know. I thought people were overthinking it for sure. And also, he's 6'5", so he's not short, but he's not tall. I think that also. So it was just like, I think people were a little nervous to project him as something more than a bench player. And I'm like, no, dude, he's a 2-way wing who can jump, who used to play point guard, who can shoot, who can defend and rebound, who's played in big games. Like, he's pretty good. So I moved him up to the teens. I was ecstatic, man.
I mean, that makes total sense. I'm just kind of looking at kind of like these like totals for like 3-pointers made in like college seasons. So he was tied for second that year where he made 100 threes. And like outside of like guys who are playing for places like Detroit Mercy and Wofford, right? Like usually guys like these guys are making threes, it looks like.
Yeah.
Like they're making over 100 threes. Like the best college 3-point shooters are making like
you have
over 100 threes. Like you have to make.
You have to shoot a lot. It sounds silly, but you have to shoot a lot of threes, and most scorers don't have the leeway to do that in college. Your coach has to have like utmost confidence in you to let you take that many threes, and for you to do that, and also be able to like be a player who can dunk on somebody and lock up. Like you said, a lot of those guys who chuck threes at these like mid-major schools, they're not dunking on anybody.
No, they're literally just chucking.
They're not locking up in the Final Four.
No,
they're not doing that shit. So
no, they're like you and me. But yeah, I know I'm discrediting them a lot, but like they're just you or me, right? We're just chucking.
Basically. So like, I don't know. He wasn't viewed as high upside, and I think since in the last couple of years, it's at least online, like the binary of upside or no upside has kind of begun to be eliminated. Thankfully, it's not quite black and white, and people know that. But back then, I think it was still a little bit of like, oh, older guy who shot a lot who only shot good for 1 year, who's not going to be a heliocentric, whatever. Like, give me some guy with worse stats, but who's like 6'11" with a 40-inch vertical, and I'll gamble on that.
That's like, for me at least, that's like my biggest like no for draft, even though like I'm not a draft person. But when I always see like the guy who like my perfect example of this is always Marquise Chris.
Oh yeah.
Right. Where they're just like, look at him jump, look at him dunk, all these things, but like he can't play basketball. So it's like, okay, great. Like there's really no upside. He doesn't have anything foundational outside of elite athleticism, which is not nothing, but you need to have a skill.
Yeah,
you need to do
it goes
something.
to what you were saying earlier. Like, usually the good upside players are still productive. Like, there's a player in this year's class, Noah Clowney, he could go anywhere from 15 to 35. His range is, he's one of the younger players. He's 6'9", 6'10", power forward. Maybe when he gets stronger in a couple of years, he could play some center. He's a great shot blocker. He can shoot a little bit. His 3-point percentage wasn't high, but the shot looks good, and he took a lot of threes. And he's the kind of player who, even though he can sort of shoot, it's like fake shooting, and he doesn't really dribble ever. And a lot of what he does is just like, I'm blocking shots, I'm dunking. So if you watch the video of him, you'd be like, oh, this is a raw, high upside player, right? Like, he looks like he could maybe become, like, if some stars align, like in the same family tree as like Jaden McDaniels, Jaren Jackson Jr., like all these awesome, like big, impactful two-way fours. But everything is hypothetical. And then you look at his box plus minus, and it's like 8.5, which means he was productive. And then you look at his team, and it's like, oh yeah, he was one of the best players on one of the best teams, despite being raw. And this is what I'm saying. Like, even the teenagers who are perceived as raw, like if they're good prospects, they'll probably show that they know how to play basketball on some level.
Right. Like, yeah, it was similar to like Ben Simmons, and it's kind of easy now to like trash like the Ben Simmons stuff.
He was a monster in college.
He was a monster, but he also like his team didn't do anything.
No, they sucked.
Right. And it's kind of like, to me at least, at some point, because even though basketball is a team sport, we all know that sometimes, like, if you're that good, you should be able to like drag your teams. Right. And like Ben Simmons was that good, but he didn't drag them. So it's like, it kind of worries me. But like you were mentioning too about like Alabama. I don't follow it. You said they're one of the best teams in college basketball. So like, if the team is functioning at a high level, right, like they're clearly doing something right, no matter what the level is. So like that there has to be some sort of acknowledgement of winning. And I feel like I sound like an old head now, but I feel like we swayed so far into stats that we kind of forgot like the purpose of the game, which is like,
you just have to, like, if a player's team is bad, you have to, it's tough. You have to analyze how bad they are.
Yes, exactly.
Like, are they playing with guys who are not even going to play in Europe? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, you have to look. Just like, there's a player this year he has, like, if you squint and look at him, he has a lot of elements of like a classic prototype lotto wing. Max Lewis. He's 6'8", 7-foot wingspan, not ground bound. He can get up there. He's a little skinny. He's an amazing catch and shoot 3-point shooter. He took shots off the dribble. He ran pick and rolls. He did like everything on offense for his team. His team was dog shit, especially to end the season.
Well, he went to Pepperdine, so.
Yeah. So his team was dog shit, and he was playing in a worse conference. So the question with him is like, all right, if he's an NBA wing, why was his bummy team in a bummy conference bummy, right? Like,
right.
It's valid. It's a valid question. And I haven't quite, and I've watched his team, and like they have another player who's pretty decent, but it's a pretty shitty team. Aside from that, he's still in my first round, but like I had to acknowledge that he's not. Yeah. Otherwise I would have had him like, 6'8" scoring wing who can pass.
Right.
Like, yeah, a lot of it normally.
He on NBADraft.net is compared to Sean Elliott and Devin Vassell.
Okay, NBADraft.net.
All right. Franklin Chubb also asks, are there any players after the 4th pick that the Knicks should make a serious move to be able to draft? I'm going to give you my guy just by looking at the boards. In this, I think the Knicks need to go after. All right, I think we already talked about him. I was going to say it has to be Marcus Sasser. I just like his name.
He's very Knicksy. In my parent article where I created a very scientific system.
It was very scientific.
You could put that thing in a scientific journal, and I'm.
No, I found my guy. I'm sorry, Jet Howard. He's clearly the guy.
Jett Howard is an elite name.
Yeah, Jett Howard. That's who the Knicks need to get. Jett Howard.
Honestly, like if they could get like say so one of the first questions was about like we were talking about trading in and all that, and
Yes.
there was a report that Houston already has a bunch of young guys. They're gonna have a top 5 pick. They also have the 20th pick, and there was a report that said they were looking to trade that for a future protected pick. So say the Knicks are like, here, we'll give you the Bucks protected pick that we have, or the Wizards protected pick, or whatever, and they get the 20th pick. Jett is a guy who might fall to 20. He might not, but he's an amazing ball handler and amazing shooter, and he's 6'8". You just kind of and he's also a pretty good passer, but you got to figure out everything else out. He's like a twig. He's not athletic. He gets bullied. He's not particularly agile.
So is this Jamal Crawford basically?
It's more like Jamal Crawford if he didn't take like insane shots.
Oh,
like he doesn't do like he can do crazy like cross tween step backs, but he's content. He's a little smarter than that. He'll like mostly run around screens, and he's a ridiculous spot up shooter, and he can do step backs and stuff like that.
You mean like Doug McDermott?
He's a little like Doug McDermott, but not Doug McDermott is, a sneaky, strong athlete. Like
I've given you NBA draft net comp now.
Okay, I could see that a little bit. Like he's really young. He's 18, like a young 18.
Yeah.
He's gonna be 18 on draft day, and he just needs to hit the gym. He's Jawan's son. He played for his dad. Yeah, he played for his dad. Yeah.
Okay.
And he was seen to start the year as the best prospect on that team, but at the end of the year, he was no longer the best prospect on that team. His teammate Kobe Buffkin, who's a combo guard, took that mantle.
I did not see Kobe Buffkin. That is also an elite name.
There's some quality names here.
Like there are some good names in this draft right now. There's Kobe Buffkin. There's Derek Whitehead.
Ricky Council the fourth.
There's a Ricky Council the fourth.
Yeah, he's a fun prospect too. That guy is like a zillion-inch vert.
Oh yeah, I see that. Ricky Council the fourth is a great name too.
There's some hyphenations: Jalen Hood-Schifino, Trace Jackson Davis, Grady Dick. I'd be remiss if we didn't mention Grady Dick.
I forgot about Grady Dick. He's definitely top. He's
going in the lotto. He's going in the lotto.
That's really upsetting because he needs to be a Dick. There's also Oliver.
Olivier Maxence Prosper, which is the most Haitian name I've ever read in my life. He's good. He's gonna be a first rounder.
Oh man, these are some great names. If the Knicks don't draft someone with a great name, I'll be very disappointed.
Isaiah Wong, Demoy Hodge, Terquavion Smith. These are all legit players. These aren't like undraftable guys. Gigi Jackson.
Gigi Jackson's a good one.
Sir Jabari, that's one word. Sir apostrophe Jabari. Sir Jabari Rice. He's an awesome athlete.
This is
played
great.
For Texas.
Oh,
Tiger Campbell.
Wait, there's someone named Tiger?
Taylor Funk, a real prospect who can shoot the fuck out of the ball.
The Knicks have to get someone with an elite name. I'm sorry. There's no excuses now.
Even if it's just, dip into the second round, grab somebody for the Westchester Knicks.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of great names, here's Franklin Chubb's last question. 1 year on, how do you feel about us not landing Jaden Ivey? Have you forgotten he exists? Yes. Yes.
I mean, when you play in Detroit, it's easy to become forgettable. I'll say that.
And not only that, we have Jalen Brunson. I don't think Jaden Ivey's tall, right? So it's not like it wouldn't have affected. Like he could have technically played.
He's like 6'4", 6'5".
Right. So it wouldn't have affected Brunson that much. But we have Jalen Brunson, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I wish him all the best in Detroit.
Yeah, congrats. I hope he does well. He probably will do well. He has all the makings. He has the potential. Even when we watched when the Knicks played Detroit, I was like, Jaden Ivey looks pretty good. He looks like a good player. But
he had some good games versus us.
Yeah, so I have forgotten about him. I don't care. Jalen Brunson is that guy. So, Ronnie from Hell's Kitchen asks, what is the value of Rokas in a trade for a pick? Rokas plus Obi.
I would say he's probably the equivalent of a meh protected pick, maybe.
That makes sense.
Like a mediocre, not like a good protected pick, like a protected pick that might be a late first, might be an
like the
early second
protected
kind
pick
of.
like the Knicks have between Washington and what's the other team?
The Pistons.
Yeah.
So the Wizards pick goes out to, it's protected out to 2026, and in that year it's top 8 protected. The year before it's top 14. So if the Wizards are even with a full rebuild with 2 years, say they tank this year, 23-24 season, they tank the next year, 24-25 season, and then you get to the 2026 draft, if they're still picking in the top 8, then either they jumped up into the top 3 or something has gone wrong, because I don't think you see teams that intentionally are that bad. Like, you see that happen, but it's never on purpose. Like, Detroit has had numerous top 10 picks, but they also jumped for Ivy.
Yes.
But Hayes was 7th, Cade was 1, Ivy, and then they're gonna pick 5th this year. So like, that's not how they drew it up. So might they still be that bad? Yeah, it's the Wizards. Who the fuck knows? It might be a shit show. But this guy Michael Winger seems pretty serious. So I would be surprised. But it is definitely less likely now than like if they were obviously trying to be fake good, then I'd be more confident in them like stumbling into a playing game between now and 2026 or some shit. So yeah, maybe a pick like that is, I would still say a pick like that is better as an asset than Rokas, but like a little below that maybe. So
it would be tough because it looks like I'm looking at it right now. The Wizards are picking 8th. They're doing the full rebuild. So like they're more than likely going to have in 2024, right? Probably like a top 5 pick.
Yeah, I think next season they're gonna be one of the worst teams in the NBA.
Right. And then the next season, then after that would be the 2025 draft. They're still gonna suck. But like if you have a top 10 pick and then like 2 top 5 picks, and you're still in the early half of the lottery, you're right. Like something went wrong in those 2 top 5 picks.
And Denny was like 11th or whatever.
Right. And Denny's turned out to be decent, right? So like you have some like decent guys on that team. It would be.
And Johnny Davis was the 10th pick.
Well, he's basically got outcasted. He's gone.
I hope he can get it back together. Prez was a big fan.
Oh no, it'd be great. He was on Taco Bell commercials. So I was all ready for for Johnny Davis. But yeah, like something had to have gone wrong with one of those like high picks in the next 2 years, or like you said, or a jump, right? Because like 2 years of high draft picks. Well, it would be 3 years, right? Like 3 years of what we're saying would be top 10 draft picks. Like something went wrong. Something had to have gone wrong.
Yep.
And I feel like we've gotten a lot better with the draft too. I think teams have just gotten a lot more smarter with the draft too, where we're not taking like these crazy picks. Like someone's going to be decent.
No, I agree.
And then what was it? Then the Detroit pick. Oh, I just had it.
The Detroit pick goes out to 2027. So like, there's no way. Like they already have like 4 or 5 lotto type guys on the team now.
I would be shocked.
Yeah. Again, who knows what the fuck they're doing, but I would still not bet on them being horrible in 2026 or 2027.
Yeah, because like Cade started off slowly. He got hurt and everything, but like he looked pretty good.
Yeah, Cade will be really good by then. Ivy will probably be a lot better. All these guys should be a lot better by then. That's 4 years from now.
Yeah, right. And like they just like there's certainly like Cade's good, Ivy's good, and Dern is pretty good, right? So like they have the foundation of like like the wings, the guards,
and they're gonna get a player at 5 this year who probably could go number 1 or 2 last year or in other classes. So
really, so like, okay, so Cam Whitmore is projected on Tankathon, at least to number
yeah,
5. Let me see who Ricky has at SB Nation. He also has Cam Whitmore. So you're saying like Cam Whitmore's like a really, really good.
yeah. There's like probably 6 or 7 players who in other years would be in the mix for like 1 or 2.
Okay.
Cam Whitmore is really fucking good.
Okay. So yeah, like it would be crazy if Detroit, if we didn't get Detroit pick. And even then, the Knicks are also going to be good. Like we're assuming, right? Like the Knicks are still going to be good over these years. I don't know how much you actually want. I would have to look at how the lottery salaries turn out for the rookie picks, right? But like these fixed salaries, I don't know if you want that much money on a fixed on a rookie. Like maybe you actually want a second round pick, just given how the Knicks draft.
Yeah.
Just for like salary cap purposes. Like we don't.
Sure.
We would have to see how the cap goes along too. But right, like if the say Detroit does in 2027 fall to number 10, Knicks get the pick. That's a top 10 salary, and I don't know, like that's a lot for someone who probably won't play. So it's so far in the future. I these picks are fine. These picks are totally fine. They're definitely assets. I wouldn't worry too much about them. So okay, we got that. So we did the Rokas thing. Oh, good. We have Mikey Cooks. This isn't draft related, Prez, but should I get Chinese food or a chicken Caesar wrap for lunch today?
American Chinese? Do you think he's talking about American Chinese food? Probably.
I think he probably has to be talking about like American takeout Chinese food,
like Chinese food where there's a bulletproof window inside the store.
Yeah, like General Tao's chicken type stuff.
Well, frequent Discord contributor Mikey, I'm gonna encourage him to be healthy. There's a time for Chinese food, and that time is when you're hungover. So save it for that.
Save it for that or for dinner, right? Like takeout is so much better for dinner than it is for lunch, because you could just be like, oh yeah, no, I'm ordering for a bunch of people, when it's just yourself eating all like the pork lo mein, right? Like that's the time to do it. Like you can't just walk in and be like, hey, get the lunch special. Like it's good. I don't know. I would go with the Caesar wrap as well. So, all right. Stingy asks, you got any gum?
I bought some Big Red from the store the other day. They still sell that shit. I bought that shit just for old time's sake.
Was it good?
Nah, it was a lot better when I was a kid.
There's no way Big Red is good.
Now it just reminds me of like what's that cinnamon alcohol? Fireball.
Yeah, it's just Fireball. You're right.
It's chewy Fireball. So
I wonder if they still make. Do you remember the zebra gum?
No, what the fuck is that?
It was a gum with zebras on it.
Was it good?
I don't remember. I just remember there were zebras on it. We're gonna have our researchers get us updated on that.
Yes, more Patreon content.
Yeah, more Patreon content. We're going to talk to you about the zebra gum. Okay, Knights of Cup asks, before the playoffs, the consensus was the Knicks need a big wing, but after seeing how the Heat series played out, do you see the team targeting someone else?
This is a really big question for the Knicks, and it touches on what we talked about in terms of minutes, and if you draft a guard, can they play behind other guards that we have? I do think a big wing is the easiest path to minutes, but say they can find somebody who's like 6'5" or 6'6" and a ridiculous shooter, of which there are players of that type. I would rather have that guy on our bench than a 6'8", 6'9" guy who probably can't shoot. You know,
I would agree.
But in terms of like needs on defense and stuff in particular, I could see the appeal. So I definitely think it's an important hole that they have to fill. I just don't know if they have to do it by the draft. They could still use like the MLE or sign an old guy or do some other shit. So,
the Knicks basically need someone who plays better defense than Fournier, right? Like that's kind of the guy that they could have used. Right, like kind of like that archetype of like size and shooting and stuff, but like Fournier is pretty washed though, right? Like you couldn't have like thrown him out in the playoffs, especially given that they stopped playing him. But like, that's who they kind of need. They need someone
Yeah.
like him.
And if Obi is, if they decide we have to trade Obi because we're not going to pay him, like he may have been misused, but he also had a role, right? He was like backup power forward who could take threes. Like, so then you have the question of like, all right, would you prefer a power forward size guy who might shoot but might not be a good shooter, or would you prefer like a small forward size guy who might be a little short for that role but could probably make those threes? Yeah. So that's going to be the kind of questions they're faced with if they have a pick.
Yeah, I feel like they probably need to go with
I don't really have a preference. I think like there's good arguments for both. And I say either or because if there's a tall guy, so like this is why that guy I mentioned from Pepperdine is so interesting. He's a tall guy who can shoot. He's 6'8" with a 7-foot wingspan, and one of the things that is not in doubt is he can hit catch and shoot threes. He shot like 44% on catch and shoot threes. His shot looks good. It's just everything else that you're like, I don't know if he can play defense, or you know, if he's too skinny, he's just gonna get bodied and blah blah blah. So like, he can't play power. Like he's tall, but he's probably not. He's probably 25 pounds away from playing.
Yeah, there's a big difference between being like a big man and a big man.
Exactly. So my favorite, the player I am highest on relative to other people in this class is Bryce Sensabaugh, he played some 2, he played some 3, he's 6'6". He was not out of shape, but he's not in shape either. He was 235. He looked like a football player. He's a big boy. He's also a historically great shooting prospect. Like this, every shooting stat he has, like long twos, NBA threes, threes off the dribble, threes off movement, corner threes, above the brick, like whatever you can find on the internet of his like jump shot stuff is pretty much like great shooter. Doesn't know what the fuck he's doing on defense. This was like the first time he's had to play organized defense, and he was lost like the majority of the time. So he would probably make Tibbs like jump off the fucking Brooklyn Bridge or something. But you could credibly stick him into that Obi role, and he would train the fuck out of those threes. And I'm really high on him because if, like Obi, if you get someone with immense offensive talent to be okay at defense, you're gonna have a really good player. Especially in today's league where shooting is the night and day of everything. He's the kind of guy who I'm like, yeah, he'd probably be undersized compared to power forwards, but he's also 230 pounds.
Yeah, he's big.
He's a strong kid. You know, you could send him out there, and if you can deal with a couple of mental lapses, and he'll at least play the Obi role of shooting and scoring. He'll play that role well. So I don't know. There's different things they could do.
Yeah, they can go in different directions. We'll see what Josh Hart resigns for. Like, he's going to be interesting. Like, he can't shoot, but he needs to shoot. And
he can, like, fake shoot.
like, he's an interesting guy because, like, the rebounding helps, right? Because he could rebound and just do basic dribbling. So, like, that helps for his size and his role. Yeah, I mean, for the Miami series, I didn't think shooting was that much of an issue. I still feel like they should have won that series. And more of it had to do with just like Julius Randle kind of not showing up, right? Like that's kind of like what
if your second star shits the bed, it's going to be really hard. No matter, like, we could talk about like, yes, the rest of our shooters didn't shoot well, or Tibbs didn't do this or that. Yeah, but like it is what it is.
Yeah, like Jalen Brunson showed up, RJ showed up for the most part, right? And then it's like Julius didn't show up, and like, what do you do with that? And it's you're not going to win. Like it really comes as simple as that. Like your guy who made third team All NBA didn't show up. Like,
and that's true of any team. Like if Jaylen Brown showed up to some series for Boston and shot 32%, guess what? The Celtics would get their ass kicked. Like that's exactly what would happen.
So I guess like having someone to replace what we're assuming, right? We're basically saying someone to replace Obi because Obi's probably not going to be here. Yes, it should be shooting, but I just don't know if that's based on the Heat series necessarily.
Right.
So, Robbie asked, when will Tom Thibodeau be held responsible for nuking Obi's trade value? I mean, never. He's never been held responsible.
Yeah. Why would he?
Yeah, like hey, like because we watch this team all the time, right? We're rewatching film just like Tibbs 3-4 times a day. We just know that they're just going to be like the Knicks were like, hey, Tibbs made the playoffs 2 out of the 3 years. One of them was the second round. He's done everything fine. Like he's not going to be held accountable. Like it's as simple as that. He's not going to be held accountable. Otherwise, like he's been seen as more relatively a success. We'll disagree because we're diehards about it, but like he's technically successful and he will not be held accountable.
Yeah,
and
the
Obi
team's going to be
traded.
good again next year.
Yeah, like it's even without Obi. Even as much as we're like trade Julius, we don't think he has it in him. The Knicks are like he's still probably going to be good in the regular season. They'll still probably make the playoffs, right? Like and Obi doesn't matter that much, unfortunately. We would like him. We like watching him play, but he's not changing the game. He'll probably change the game for someone else when they're like, oh shit, like he could just run for 30 minutes straight. Like that's amazing. But it's not going to be in New York, unfortunately. So sad. So crushing. All right, Jax365 asks, New Orleans calls the Knicks and offers Zion for Randall and picks the trade. Would you do it? You can fill out to make it like you can fill it out to do a realistic trade. So, I mean, I think just at the core of it, are you doing Zion for Randall, Prez?
Probably, and probably especially if you include picks. Just I know it's like a gamble, and one guy plays all the games, and the other guy plays like none of the games. But
so no, but we're trading picks to get Zion.
Oh, I don't know. I'm probably higher on Randall as a Knick than most people, even with his clusterfuck playoff performances. And as we've discussed earlier, I'm extremely risk averse when it comes to injury and stuff like that. Listen, but Zion is so good when he's on the court that I don't know, man.
If in this scenario, if it's just picks and the Knicks decide to keep Obi, at least for like one more year, I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind that risk. But you're risking a lot.
Yeah, like, that could blow up big time.
Yeah, like it could be a huge issue because like you're already seeing what Zion's doing. Like I've before in the Discord, I made the argument that if Zion was in New York, there'd be so much pressure on him that he wouldn't be doing these shenanigans. But you also the counter argument is it's New York and it's easy to get easy to do exactly what he's doing.
He certainly wouldn't be the first player to
he wouldn't be the first
go wild in the city.
Right. He wouldn't be the first, he wouldn't be the last. There's a lot of baggage with him, and I think it's one of those things where it's ultimately up to him. Like, what does he want to make his career? Like moving forward now. Like he's like at like a pretty pivotal point. He's barely played. He knows he has the talent when he plays. He's not in shape, and it seems like his off the court stuff is like a mess.
Yeah.
So like it's a huge risk for the Knicks. Like for Randall, I think you've basically described it this way. Like Randall's issues is just every other like normal day person's dealing with mental health. Like
he just happens to be in the public eye.
Yeah, he just
extremely.
He just happens to be in the public eye in a really high pressure job, unlike probably most of us. But like he's dealing with the same thing. Like, oh, I'm a young parent. How do I deal with that? How do I cope with that? How do I cope with the attention I'm getting? Like he just like Randall's struggles is just our daily lives of just be like going to therapy every day. So like as frustrating as that is, at least I know what I'm getting out of Randall. Zion, I don't know. Like, is he ever going to be serious? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think I'm doing it. Yeah. I think I just talked myself out of the trade. I don't think I'm doing it. Even though it's super enticing. He's better than Randall, right? Like he would be the better version of Randall on this team. Like
when he plays, he's basically like a top 5, top 10 type player.
Like, right. Like we're talking
while being overweight and out of shape.
Right. Like the thing is, like Randall had a great season. He was like 13 all NBA. Like out of shape Zion does that already. Like when he's on the court.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So like the upside is there. So if the Knicks did it, sure, it's a gamble. I wouldn't agree with it, but I don't know. It's tough. It's tough with Zion. Again, he's someone I want to get straight. And if he gets things better in New York, I would be fine with it. I would be A-okay with that. All right. Knights of Cup is following up with Ravi about his Obi question. And this appears to be the last one of the questions, and we'll basically go from there afterwards. And Knights of Cup goes, and did we ever get to the bottom of why he thought small forward Alec Burke was the better option at point guard than IQ? It seems like no one brings up how insane that was.
I mean, that's because we all spent a whole fucking season bringing up how insane it was, and we don't want to re-traumatize ourselves by reliving those dark times.
That is exactly it. Right. That's exactly it. We can't. When you're trying to discuss something with someone and they're just so fundamentally different than you, like you can't just have a conversation. Like that's what this Alec Burke situation is almost, right? Like there is no answer that's going to satisfy us. There's nothing that can be done. You have to just let it go and just ignore it. Otherwise it'll drive you insane. Like what reason is there? Like, can you think of one? I can't.
Shit, yeah, I don't
right, like, can you think of just one reason that you're just like, this makes sense? No.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's just, we don't want to re-traumatize it. Oh, there is one thing, actually. Technically, the Knicks lineup with Burks at point guard was a net neutral in plus minus.
Oh my God. I don't even want to go there.
But yeah, like that was the case. Yeah, there's no excuse for not having IQ that way. Oh, also speaking of the Heat series, like IQ got hurt and he wasn't playing well in the playoffs, right? Like this Knicks team really, I don't think is that far from being very good. So yeah, that's another thing. So it looks like those are our questions. What's pretty interesting is that this isn't like a 7-hour show that Dallas and I are used to, but Prez, is there anything you want to like discuss before we head out? Is there something that's on your mind? Is there a player you're like, we need to get? Any crazy predictions? Anything along those lines?
I was able to get to most of my agendas throughout these questions. Thankfully, thanks to our astute questions by the readers and Discord
that is true.
members.
We were able to get out agendas with stuff.
I guess not really a question, but I suspect in more of a gut than anything, I think it's just going to be a wild draft day in terms of trades and shit. I have no idea if the Knicks will be involved in that, but between Zion and Portland and Charlotte and the Wizards and Dallas, these are all teams with high picks that are either tearing shit down or building shit up. It has the potential to get a little crazy. So I'm very much looking forward to Thursday.
Oh, I am very much looking forward to Thursday because I feel like we already know, like Dallas is trading that pick. I feel that is 100%.
Portland trading that giant, Dallas trading that. Yeah, I don't know. And that's like at minimum. Even if that's all it is, that's still like a lot in the top 10.
Okay, actually, no, I have a question for you. Because you brought up Portland. Wouldn't it be better for them to just rebuild?
Duh.
Right? Like I feel like I'm being gaslit, even though I'm not, right? Like there's an almost like, well, what do you mean they're gonna trade the pick to build around Lillard, right? Like that seems insane to me. Like, how is that even an option? Like they've gotten worse since they traded CJ McCollum. Like, it's clearly over. What am I missing?
It's been over for a while for them, but like even if you magically do get a really great player, right? Like it could be Ingram, it could be Pascal,
right?
Like, I mean, you can make the playoffs, and sure, you get playoff revenue, and I guess that's important for owners and all that shit. But you're not like fucking with Phoenix. You're not fucking with the Nuggets. You're probably not fucking with like the Lakers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, who are they really going to be better than?
I mean, they would be in the mix, but like you're not like if your goal is to just be in the mix, then by all means, like be mid and go for it. Have a ball.
I mean, yeah, okay, yeah. I think you're right at that point, right? Like, okay, yeah, okay, and be mid. I don't see. I think it's the same. You're right though. They're gonna trade it. So like, who's going to get these picks? I don't know. It'd be cool if the Knicks would get them, but
yeah.
But okay. So I do have a question for you then, right? That Portland is like, we want Julius Randle. We'll give you the third pick, or whatever the framing of that. But that's like the core of the pick. Who are you taking for the third pick?
Because
we can assume that it's going to be Scoot and Wembanyama 1 and 2, right? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Like,
yes, that's
no
fair.
matter what any other thing like Tankathon.
I mean, there's a chance that Charlotte is crazy and just takes Brandon Miller.
Okay,
but it's not like a 0% chance. But I would still bet on Scoot being the second pick. For third, I have third on my board is Cam Whitmore, and fourth is Amen Thompson. Speaking of awesome names, and
yeah, those are good names.
And I have them both pretty much neck and neck. I think they're both amazing. I would love for either of them to be New York Knicks. I think in most years, those guys would be number one picks. They're both incredible, mind-blowing athletes who combine other talents with their athleticism.
Mm-hmm.
So they're both taller than 6'5", which is also cool from a Knicks perspective.
Yes, they need someone with a little bit of height.
Yeah, none of them are going to be second team All NBA like Julius Randle next year or probably the year after that. So in that sense, like, yes, the player you are going to get is not going to be as good as Julius Randle was this year, almost certainly.
Yes.
But they're still amazing blue chip prospects who will be really good for fucking the next 10 years and super team controlled and blah, blah, blah. So I would do it if I was the GM, but obviously I understand that like this guy, Julius Randle, was a fucking monster for you last year.
He was.
And you're trying to be good now. You're not trying to be worse next year than you were this year. So like, I get it. That being said, if I could like inception into fucking Leon Rose's brain, I would do it. Easy. I would say that as somebody who's pro Julius for the most part.
I know for me, I would definitely do Cam Whitmore only because he went to Villanova.
Yeah, that's true.
Like I would do that, and I'm assuming Osar and Amen Thompson are related.
They're twins.
I kind of figured that just looking at like their weight and where they went, their ears and everything they went. I feel like they need to be a package duo. We need more brothers on the same team.
They're never on the same team, except for there was one time Blake and his brother were on the same team.
Well, yeah, the Morris twins for a bit.
The Morris twins were on the same team.
The Martin twins were on the same team for a bit.
So there you go. It's happened quite a lot.
Yeah, but like the Lopez twins too. But I feel like twins should always be a package deal.
Oh, just always.
So like if there's twins, so like in this specific case, if the Rockets at 4 pick Amen Thompson, they also get Asar Thompson.
I mean, that would be like, as far as twins duos go, this is the best. Like, Blake might be good enough to have made up for his brother.
I mean yes.
Yeah, I mean, and same with Brooke. Well, Rolo was nice. I shouldn't hate on Rolo like that. Rolo was nice.
Yeah, Rolo has a very specific like niche as like he's just a really good backup center.
Exactly, and he has been for like 10 years.
Yeah, he's been doing this his entire career. Like that is a good career for him.
Yeah, both the twins are like number 1, number 2, number 3 type pick players in most years.
That's just kind of crazy that these drafts do that. But because I'm like, this is because I think we were like talking about this too. I'm just like, what are you talking about, Prez? Like, what does it matter? But like, I guess it probably does matter in some cases.
What do you mean?
Like, just because like some of these guys would be projected number 1 picks, like, does that actually matter in a sense of like how you're evaluating them or like where they land or what they do, since it's still a crapshoot? But I guess there is some element of that I'm probably overlooking because I'm not watching it, in that they have such a strong baseline, and that's probably where you're saying that, like, they're a top pick, and I'm just like, no, it's all hypothetical, but you're like, well, I'm assuming it's more of like, no, they're just really good basketball players.
Exactly. Okay. Like, as far as being young prospects go, like the twins, for example, are elite athletes, but it's not like they're both elite athletes and they both kind of suck at shooting. But a lot of the other stuff that they do is pretty projectable. Like they're fucking dogs on defense. They lock in, they work hard, they're big and fast and agile with long arms.
Their per 36 numbers on Tankathon I'm looking at right now are absolutely insane.
Well, they didn't play. Remember, they played in the overtime elite league, so that's like this new thing, and the competition is less than college. But like, you get so like you get and it's not the G League, right? It's not pros either. But you kind of get the gist of it from their stats, which is like they score a lot. They are both really good passers. Like
they're just always involved in like the plays.
Yeah, exactly. They're very versatile. Except for they can't shoot, which obviously is a big giant asterisk. But like, like the thing with them is like they can't shoot. But if you had to design a prospect who couldn't shoot, it
Those
might
are
be
the guys
like
you want.
Yeah, like 6'7", 7-foot wingspan, bounce out the gym. Amen in particular is probably going to be the best athlete in like 75 games out of 82 that he plays in. I don't even know who's a better athlete than him on the whole in the NBA. Maybe like
Jericho Sims.
Maybe Jericho Sims if Jericho's lucky. If Jericho cuts his hair and gets like an extra 5 inches of vert.
That I think that's probably the case. Even though Jericho's crazy.
He needs to get rid of that doofy ass haircut. I know them
really
Gen Z kids like that shit.
I know he really does. He just needs just trim it, just keep it classic, and just move on. But no,
the kids like that shit.
Hey, I didn't know about this overtime elite thing. I thought it was.
It's new. It's in the last couple of years. It's an alternative. They get paid. It's a real league, but some players go from there to the NBA. Sometimes they go to college after that. The younger players, so it's kind of still in its inception as an alternative. They're certainly the best players to come out of it. So it'll be really interesting just from a scouting perspective if they actually to see how they do. Yeah, exactly.
And is Victor Wembanyama like really like that good of a prospect?
Yeah, he is.
He really is.
He is. It's crazy.
It's so annoying that he's on the Spurs, though.
It is, but at least he's in the West, right?
That is true.
But it is annoying because fuck the Spurs.
It's
bullshit.
It's just wild. I'm like, I don't know. I am pretty excited to see how he turns out, though.
That shit is gonna be must-see TV. They probably won't be good next year, but I don't care. Like, just to see how he does.
That's who the Spurs.
It's been so like.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say like. We had Luka and Zion come into the league, and they were amazing immediately. And Zion was even more amazing. They were both more amazing than I expected. So, like, I feel like they've set the bar really high for Wemby because they were just prolific. Like, Luka, I was not one of these people who's like, DeAndre Ayton over Luka. Like, I was like, no, this is stupid. Luka should be the first round pick. He was the MVP of the second best league in the world at age 17. Don't overthink it. But even
they did. They overthought it, though.
Yeah, several teams did. And I was like, he came in and he was cooking as a rookie. And, he had that famous quote, or I don't know if it's famous, but he had that quote where he was like, yeah, it's actually easier to play here than in Europe. And
he did say that
because of the combination of like, it was more space and less physical because of the more space and the fouls. So for his type of play style, it makes sense that he would say like, oh yeah, like I have more room to do the stuff that I got to do here. And they can't be as physical with me because then it's a foul.
Right.
And Zion like just destroyed people from day one, but obviously he couldn't stay on the court. So I don't know. People have asked me like how I think, like put some numbers on how I think he's gonna do in terms of scoring and all that. And I can't
even think of numbers stuff. I'm just talking just about like just him playing, right?
Yeah.
Like is he just gonna be like
he's gonna fit? I think he's gonna look immediately not just like he belongs, but he's gonna give people fucking problems like from the beginning. Like obviously he's gonna have days where, like he's gonna go up against the Nuggets and Jokic is gonna send him into the 10th row or whatever. But Jokic is gonna do that to everybody anyway, so whatever. But he's gonna he's gonna have, especially like how rookies are, they're a little more inconsistent. But when he has these games where he's like blocking like 8 shots and like hitting 5 threes and then fucking getting putback dunks from like the dotted line and shit like that, people are just gonna be like, what the fuck do we do with this? Like,
I saw a highlight where he had a step back 3 and fade away in the corner, and I'm like, you can't guard that. You can't. Like, there's certain things he does. It's like you can't do anything. Like I don't understand him sometimes. So I'm excited to watch him.
He's not quite the, like, as far as how good of a jump shooter he is. Like, he's not. Kristaps came in and was a very good jump shooter.
Yes,
and I would say Wemby's not quite the jump shooter Kristaps is, but he can also dribble the ball way better than Kristaps. I was going to
say he handles the ball better than Kristaps, so it looks better.
Yeah, and Kristaps, like, for all his great jump shooting, like, you didn't really want him taking off the dribble jump shots because he couldn't get into the jump shot. But Wemby, he may be a worse overall shooter, but like he can get to more kinds of jump shots because he can dribble, which is like not fair.
Yeah, like I said, like if you're doing step back 3s in the corner, like you're a whole other level, man. But that's the show. I hope this isn't on the Patreon. I want this to be all of it, all in its glory. Hopefully we'll get this out soon before the draft. Draft is on Thursday. Please watch. See if any the Knicks join the draft or not. That's our show. Prez, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.